We wanted to introduce ourselves before we get started. So I'm Dr. Ivey Peltz.
And I'm Dr. Studley.
And we are the founders of Doccupations, which is an online algorithmic dental job matching service. So our objective is to help you find jobs when you graduate. And toward that end, we are sponsoring all of you to free memberships in Doccupations. So if you go to www.doccupations.com and use promo code ESSCARES on the billing page, you will have a free membership in Doccupations. That will be good from now, wherever you are, D1 through D4, through completion of dental school or a residency program, whichever you check off. And it'll be good until 3 months after the completion of your program, and you won't start matching with jobs until 3 months before that. So we hope you'll all take advantage of it, because aside from anything else, we set the profile page up so that it will help you start making some of the decisions that you have to make before you can begin to look for a job, simply by going through the profile page. So we hope you'll use that tool in that way, and we have some other ways for you to use it too. But before we start talking about any of that, preparation for employment, we're going to tell you a little bit more about ourselves. So Dr. Studley will start.
So I'm Dr. Studley. I graduated from New York University College of Dentistry in 1985. I started teaching 1 day a week day after I graduated. And I also entered working for 3 or 4 or maybe 5 different dentists my first year out of school. After 1 year post-graduation, I bought an existing practice, that over a 12-year period of time, I grew it to a multi-specialty, multi-doctor practice. Unfortunately, after 12 years, I suffered a couple of different disabilities that I had to stop practicing. That propelled me, number one, to grow my academic career, and I became a full-time associate professor, a group practice director, and I'm sure every school has different, they call group leaders, group practice directors. And I was also the director of practice management and ergonomics, which is a 4-year business curriculum. I was there for 33 years and recently retired, and not so recent, 2018, from teaching. While I was also pursuing different avenues of a career, I went back to school and became licensed for life, health, and disability insurance, worked for different insurance companies, and now it's been 28 years. 28 years ago, started my own insurance brokerage company, which is called my name, Eric Studley and Associates, and we specialize in the insurance needs of dentists throughout the United States. We have been, for like the last 18 years, the #1 producer of disability insurance in the United States with Guardian and Berkshire Life Insurance Company of America. And now Dr. Peltz.
I'm Dr. Ivey Peltz, and I also graduated from New York University College of Dentistry. We did not know each other back then. I also graduated in the 80s, and I went on to practice. I also had many jobs my first year and stayed at one for 4 years, and then started renting space and started my own practice. Within 10 years, I was teaching back at the school. I also became a group practice director, and while I was doing that, I received a master's in higher education administration, a PhD in higher education, and a master's in the Academy of General Dentistry. So we're both very avid lifelong learners, as we hope you will be too, and we delight in bringing the knowledge that we've gained from all our years in dental education and dentistry to students like you who are given very good guidance, we know, about how to be dentists, but maybe not as great guidance about what to do once you graduate dental school and how to actually go about starting practice and being in practice. So that's what we're here to talk to you about today, is preparation for employment. And we're going to start with what we think that you need to think about before you can even start thinking about employment.
Right.
So we're going to build up. So even if you're in D1, this all applies to you now. There's stuff that you can be doing all along. So if you're in D4, don't despair, you'll catch up. But if you're in D1, you can start getting like, you know, a foot ahead, or however you want to say that, so that you're ahead of the game when it's time to start doing these things. So some of the things that you have to start thinking about before you can figure out how to look for a job. Well, one of the main things is, where are you going to be?
Right. So, you know, that's probably the most important thing. And this is where Dr. Peltz and I will say, we really, you know, as much as, and believe me, we couldn't wait to get out and work. And, you know, we graduated at the time with, you know, these NYU loans. So we're well aware of the loans that, you know, that you were facing. But we're really big fans of doing that residency. And, you know, as it was a question, you know, if I do a residency, will that hurt me from getting a job? You know, if I go right out of school and start working, let's say for a DSO, like a major corporation. And first of all, our profession, the dental profession, is a career. And the more knowledge that you can gain, and especially now, if you're a D4 that's going to be graduating, you know, we know the curriculums in the dental school. We taught, you know, our students for over 30 years. And we know how much is learned in that D4 year. And therefore, there's been somewhat of a gap. So any additional training that you can receive will only help you. And when you are applying for jobs, the fact that you've done that additional year of training, that 1 year of residency, will not hurt you, and it will actually help you. So when we start to talk about, you know, where do you know, if you're planning to stay, you know, where you've been all along, then, you know, you've already had that first question answered. But if you are looking to relocate, number one, using a residency program is an excellent way of really trying out a possible, you know, new place that you're looking to, you know, live and work. And, you know, even, you know, if you're bringing a family, or your plans are to raise a family there, applying for a residency program in a location that you are thinking of relocating to will really give you such a great way to try out the area. You're living there, you're working there, you're getting paid. And if after the year, you know, great experience, but it's just not for you, you could, you know, you go to your next place.
So when you graduate, if you want it to be, the world is kind of your oyster, at least, you know, this country is, because your license is now very portable, as opposed to like when we graduated, it was much more of a regional type of license. You had to get a lot more additional licenses if you wanted to have that kind of portability that you do. So you get to decide where you want to live. So, and some of that is going to be based on things that Dr. Studley was just mentioning, like where your family is or where your family would like to be. But also it might be a good idea to think about what kind of opportunities exist in the places where you're thinking to go. And some ways to find out some of that information are to use the ADA has on their website, they have all kinds of, it's called demographic information, and that's information about the population that lives in a place, or the dentist to patient ratio. Like these are all things that you might want to look
Median
at.
income of the population,
Right.
cost of
Median.
homes.
Uh-huh. So these are all things that you want to think about before you start thinking about relocating. Yeah, so that's one thing that you have to think about is where are you going to be? And then you also need to start thinking about your goals. So what type of practice do you want to have? And one way to start preparing for that is exposing yourself to every type of practice that you could get your foot in the door to right now. So it's a little harder because, people are trying to be more remote and everything, but any way that you can get any kind of experience in any type of practice that you're considering is a good way to know if that's what you would like or not, obviously. So the same way that as you rotate through your specialties, you get a little bit of a sense of whether or not one of the specialties is something you might enjoy. You're not really going to know if you would enjoy a very fast-paced practice or somewhere where you get to pay a lot more attention to detail. These are some of the things that you can think about while you're preparing.
There also might be some opportunities because especially, dentists out there are looking, let's say, for assistants, whether it's dental assistants. I know in my third year, I worked as a dental assistant in evenings and weekends for two different practices.
Mhm.
And that, one was a fee for service type practice. Another one was more of an insurance based practice. And it really gave me a real hands-on to see how these practices were. And I will also tell you, after I graduated a year later, one of the offices that I was a dental assistant in actually offered me a job. At that point, I'd already bought my own practice. But that once again helps to create some very beginning kind of relationships with your future colleagues.
Mhm.
So that really makes a difference. So the types of practice, because what we kind of had in our dreams when we were applying to dental school, and then after working in the clinics and everything like that, you may want to stay within a certain community, a certain population, or you may want to branch out. It really also depends on your economic goals. And I always like to stress here that your economic goals do not necessarily have to mean that you're going to make the most amount of money in order to reach your level of what you feel is success. There are so many different choices that you can make with our profession. You may want to decide for a certain type of lifestyle and you only want to work 4 days a week. For some dentists, it's a goal to get down to be able to do the same amount of production, let's say, and only work 3-4 days a week. If you are able to sustain your lifestyle to the way that you are happy, only working those kinds of hours, then you did reach success. So, if certain things, give or take, give you that lifestyle, the family involvement, certain things like that, then you have reached that level of success.
Right. So you want to factor into your economic goals, you want to factor in work-life balance. So for some people, that's not as important as reaching particular economic goals. So these are all things to ask yourself. Everybody's different, and you need to start to get some knowledge of what's important to you. And that could change over time. And so could the types of practices that you want to be in and all of that. So really your only job right now is to figure out your next step. What is the next thing that you want to do? And just as a little side note, you can make all of these decisions, but you're still most likely going to wind up with whatever job you wind up with. So there's that part too, just the reality part of life.
But you keep the eye on the prize.
Exactly, because eventually you'll get there, but
right.
It may not be your first job. So don't be disappointed. We're telling you, think everything through and plan and figure out what you want. You may not get it right away. That's okay. You will.
Right. Most new dentists, if you're not, signing on, let's say, a contract with a corporate organization, a DSO as they're called, if you end up working, for part-time for different dentists, you may work for 3, 4 different dentists. And in that instance, it might be a better education for you, because then once again, you work for 3 or 4 different types of practice types,
Mhm.
for that year. And then you realize, okay, I want practice C. And that's where then, you pursue, if owning your own practice or getting a full-time position in that kind of practice.
So there's a lot that you can do to prepare long before you start looking for a job. For example, we would recommend that you continually update your CV or your resume. So the last time you probably prepared it was when you applied to dental school, unless you're D3 or D4 and you had to start thinking about residency programs already. But it's much easier to just constantly update your CV. Every time something noteworthy occurs, update your CV and then keep a running date in the margin where you write CD updated and the date that you updated, so you know you've done that, and so does anyone who read it. We have a lot of thoughts about your CV, and one of them is that you should really include what you've learned in your program. So you don't need to, include biochemistry or anything like that, but any of the dental procedures or skills that you've gained that are anything outside of basic should be included, because some of your prospective employers just will have no idea what's included in your curriculum, either if they didn't go to your school or if they graduated more than 10 years ago. They're not going to really have any idea what you're learning right now. So you may actually have a lot to offer to their practice that they wouldn't know about if you didn't talk about what was in your curriculum. So, if you've become certified in anterior Invisalign, or if you've learned to restore single unit implants, or anything that's just a little outside of the normal curriculum, you should include in your CV. Of course, it goes without mentioning that any honors that you receive should go in there right away.
So, and that's why one of the things that, we recommend as a D1, saying that it's not too soon. You want to start compiling your letters of recommendation at the very beginning, so that if you are a D1 and you had a phenomenal relationships, you developed a great mentorship with one of the professors, and they bestowed all these great accolades on you, during the semester. You want at the end of that, get your letter of recommendation from that professor right then and there, because you are the freshest in their minds. Your interactions, were they were momentous for you. So you would like that referenced at the time, not 2 or 3 years later when you go back. You're a D4 or end of your D3 year. You're applying for residency. Now you go back to that professor who has had hundreds of students, rotate past them since you. And yes, they may vaguely remember you. You may have to, jog their memories, but it won't be the same impact as if when it occurred 3 years earlier.
And even if they do remember you, they may not remember specific incidents that would make your letter of recommendation stand out. So if you're working with the faculty and you've had a very nice interaction with them, you can say, would you be comfortable? Do you feel that you could write a strong letter of recommendation for me for my records? Because the way that it works is you usually have to waive your right to see these letters. So that that probably, you're not going to save it for all those years. Well, you are going to save it. And that's just the thing, is that then when you go back to them, because they're going to need to submit it directly to wherever, you can provide them with the letter that they wrote for you, and they can just work off of that, update it, and it's so much easier for them. When you're asking someone to do something like that, write you a letter or any other type of favor, you want to make their job as easy as possible. So if you haven't done that and now you need letters of recommendation, it might be a nice idea to say to the faculty member, I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to provide you with a few examples of when you helped me and you told me that I did a great job. I know it might be hard for you to remember, but I'm going to send you those examples. They might use those examples in your letter because they may not remember anything specific, and it will help them for you to have provided them with that. And most likely they will remember once you remind them of it.
Right. Also, the earlier that you can get your requests for letters of recommendation from your faculty, the better the letters will be. Especially the more, let's say, popular faculty that everybody wants letters from, or certain department heads, especially if you're applying for a specialty program, you really would like a letter or two or three from people in that department. And if you can get it from the department head or one of the directors, those letters carry a lot of additional weight. So having those letters in advance, going to the professors, and we will tell you, we've done this for, over 30 years. The earlier letters were always long, at least in my part, the earlier letters were much longer.
They're more enthusiastic.
A little bit more involved. When
they have better adjectives.
Right, the last 20 that are due the next morning, and these students are begging us, to please get these in. Yes, we get it done, but it's not as
glowing.
Exactly. So the earlier the better.
And we would recommend that you include the letters in with your CV so that an employer doesn't have to make an extra step of now reaching out to the people that you've mentioned and asking them for their letters of recommendation. Or if you're just providing a phone number, provide that phone number. Don't write letters of recommendation on request.
Right.
Because that's an extra step then they have to call you and say, well, you said, you could provide letters on request, and then you have to provide, now you have all these extra steps. You're making work. And the reason that an employer wants to hire you is to decrease their workload, not increase their workload. So if you want to succeed in getting a job, the best thing that you can do is explain to that employer, or even better, show them how you're going to make their job easier. So if they have 5 CVs and one of them has the letters of recommendation attached and phone numbers to call and all the rest don't, who do you think they're calling? Make it easy for people.
So in, preparing your CV, and there are many different ways. You could use a professional service.
And that might be something you might want to invest in if you feel that you can't create a professional looking CV on your own, because there should be no typos. There should be no grammatical errors. There should be no, everything should be aligned properly, and it should look properly laid out, because who are you applying to a job, for a job to? Dentists, we all have a fine eye for detail. And if you have missed something on your CV and your employer picks it up, they're going to think, this person, they can't
leave the K.
Yeah, then they're not thorough. They don't have that fine eye for detail. So everything that you present, yourself, your CV, your letters of recommendation, is a reflection of you when you're applying for a job.
So in preparing that CV, as Dr. Peltz mentioned, you should educate the person that is interviewing you by telling them, the additional procedures that, above and beyond the regular core procedures that we all learn. Your CV should be about, 2 to 3 pages long. It should be the most current, and then going backwards. It should not include, if you could help it, because it always looks like now you're looking for filler. When we see things, volunteer work that you did in high school, um, where, especially at this stage when, you're in dental school, anything, your community outreaches, the volunteer programs that you did in dental school
Or college,
or college.
just
But
more current.
right, but going back, way back to high school is, it's a little far reaching. Included with the CV, once again, to make you stand out from the rest of the others, because, we always say, once you're in dental school, everybody has a certain level of intelligence. We're all smart. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in dental school. So how are you going to separate yourself, from the person on your right, your left, same school, same education? You have to show that, as Dr. Peltz mentioned, you're willing to go that little extra step. So included with your CV should be a photo gallery of your before and after.
Not of you.
Not of you, right? Not of your vacations or, your spring breaks. Very nice, but keep that to yourselves. But, your before and after. So endo, you have a single canal that, you have your start to finish on the endo. And these are just radiographs. So, no need for pictures showing the patient's face. It's why the patient needed endo, and here's the finish. Same thing, with a premolar, a molar. These are excellent, and especially general dentists love other general dentists that have a certain level of competency or proficiency, or at least show that they could really learn so much more. So endo, and then you'll have another that has, let's say, if you've done an implant case or a perio surgery, you'll have perio, you'll have pros, fixed, removable. If you've done any implant cases, if you've done an aesthetic case, and even if you've done the wax up, let's say, for, a big aesthetic case or a multi-treatment plan kind of case, you've done the wax ups. So you have before models and, what you were able to present. And even if the patient didn't go through with the, full treatment, we used to have patients, full mouth reconstruction, and then they present and it's like, can you sign off? They're doing partials. But
After all that work.
After all that work, and you had consults with every department. We've all been through that, but it was also a phenomenal learning experience. Showing even that will impress a prospective employer that you were able to really work with all the disciplines and really put together a diverse kind of treatment plan.
When it comes to photos, same as your CV, make sure they're cropped properly. Make sure that you show it to a critical faculty and ask them if that's something that would impress them, because sometimes some of your finest work, what you think is your finest, may not be as impressive to a seasoned dentist. So you want to make sure that it's something that is as impressive as you think it is.
Right.
And yes, but the main thing is what we want you to do is imagine a stack of CVs, right? Someone's looking for an employee and they have a stack of CVs. What is going to make yours different? So.
Right, by doing the photos. But if you really want to take it one step further, do a web-based CV. So you create a website for yourself, beautiful picture of yourself with that clean white coat, the one that you got at the white coat ceremony when you were a freshman. And in that part of your web-based CV, you will then have the first column, recommendations. And we've had students do this, and everyone that has done this has really, really nailed the job, especially some in some tough job markets on the West Coast. But you go to their first drop-down tabs and it'll be recommendations. And you'll see, let's say if it's me, there's a live audio video of me under the NYU banner talking about this student.
Like a testimonial.
A testimonial.
In other words.
And there'll be other professors doing the same. And then you go to other drop-down tabs, and once again, you'll see endo, perio, fixed, aesthetics, all of those kinds of things, and they're all in drop-down tabs.
So here's the employer with a stack of CVs, and then they get an email from you with a link to the website, and your CV is all there for them to go through, neat, organized, and different. So, you know, maybe that's not going to be what you decide to do, but the point is any way that you can distinguish yourself, which gets us to the next point. As Dr. Studley said, you know, you all have your fine distinguishing characteristics, but to the naked eye, you're all great dental students. You're all in the same, you're all about the same on paper. So your job as someone applying, hoping to get a job, is to think about what distinguishes you from everybody else in your class, because not everyone will be from your class, but it's just all the same nationwide. You're a small little demographic. What is going to distinguish you? And maybe that's going to be a characteristic that has nothing to do with dentistry. It might be your outgoing personality, or your wonderful organizational skills, or your impeccable communication. Who knows? We don't know. That's for you to determine what it is about yourself. And then when you do determine what that is, then everything that you do that you're presenting should be consistent with that image that you want to portray, and really hammer it home. So it's the same as like branding a corporation. You want to be consistent across your message always. And that also is true for your social media accounts, which Dr. Studley alluded to a few minutes ago, because when you start looking for a job, your employers are going to go right to your social media accounts. So you want to make sure that everything that's on them is professional and in keeping with the brand that you're trying to create for yourself, which hopefully is a professional brand with some distinctive qualities to it.
Right, and yes, they will check your social media sites, because it's one of the quickest ways also to kind of, you know, weed through, you know, the ones that you definitely aren't going to even call in for that interview. So, you know, if you haven't cleaned that up at this stage, you know, please do market things private, whatever.
Patients check too, so.
Yes, patients check as well. And even the patients that you have in dental school, believe it or not, you know, try to check those things out. And then once again, knowing what your qualities are will help you to be able to assist the future employer with what you can offer. And, you know, a lot of times you might have a different personality than your prospective employer, and your employer is actually going to want that other kind of personality. That they may be a little more quiet, you're a little bit more outgoing, and that's something exactly what they need for the office. So don't hide those good positive qualities.
So another thing that you can be doing way before you're looking for a job is working on your presentation skills. And this is important not only in a job search, but also for your patient treatment plans, is that you need to learn how to deliver a message concisely, clearly, in an engaging way, and with confidence. And if you're not good at that yet, then you need to start some role playing, you know, now, so that you can become better and better at it. When you walk into a job interview, you probably have seconds before somebody already has an impression of you. So you need to work on making those seconds count for you in your favor.
So as far as, you know, how are we going to start getting your name out there? And, you know, once again, you know, you can never start too soon. um, your networking. So number one, you're already networking in dental school with your faculty, and whether you know it or not, um, those are all your future colleagues, and they will be a part of your ability to find future employment, because every dentist knows tens and hundreds of other dentists, and they will be excellent resources, great, proponents of you for helping you find work simply by asking them. And whether they're of any need or not, they have friends who have friends who have friends who are all dentists, and they will help to get your name out. So starting relationships, dental assisting while you can, if you're able to, while you're in dental school, working with certain professors will, really help you to start to develop. We also want you to start attending any kind of dental society meetings. As dental students, most of the local dental societies, at least I know the meetings that we attend or also present at, they are always welcoming dental students to their society meetings. A lot of them have events that are simply focused on the new dentist and bringing you guys over. So the sooner that you can get involved, especially if this is where I'm going to be staying, you want to start, getting involved with the local dental societies. Because once again, when you are ready for employment, this will be a great place, that they'll already be familiar with you. And, dentists are pretty friendly and more than happy to help you. You should attend as many of these meetings as possible. You should bring your CV with you to these meetings and make a goal for yourself to say, I am not going to leave these meetings. I came with 10 CVs. I am not leaving until I give out these 10 CVs. Of course, if the meeting's over and they're cleaning and closing up, you're going to have to leave, because then you'll get a bad name, and they won't let you show up at the other meetings. But you really want to have that goal. It might be a little uncomfortable for a lot of us to do that, but it really, really works.
Also, if you are thinking of relocating, then find out when the Dental Society meeting is going to take place where you're going to be relocating, and see if you can attend one of them. And we talked about other things you can do with documentations to prepare. And one of the things is you can search for dentists in a certain location. So there is no reason why you can't reach out to a dentist who is posting for a job and just say, I saw your name and I was wondering, I'm a dental student and I would love to have a mentor in this area. And I was wondering if you would be available for a phone call or a FaceTime call or whatever you have in mind. And this is how you can start relationships. Both of us, and I already mentioned that we did not know each other at this time. Both of us got jobs our first year by sending out letters, actual snail mail letters we decided there was a zip code we wanted to live in. We both did the same thing. And we went to the Yellow Pages at the time. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it was a book where businesses listed themselves before the internet. And we looked up all the dentists in a zip code and we sent them letters. And then a couple of weeks later, followed up with a phone call. And in both of our cases, we then both dropped in on somebody. In my case, that dentist said, I don't have a job for you, but why don't you just come hang out once a week? You'll just sit and observe me. I did that for a few weeks and he eventually hired me. He wasn't looking for anybody. So you never know where a job is going to come from. You want to put yourself out there as much as is humanly possible. And your classmates could wind up being your employers. certainly your higher classmates. So that's also something to keep in mind when you're like having chair wars and stuff, trying to find a chair and you're fighting over a patient. Just remember, these are your colleagues for life. You should all be very nice to each other. You never know when you're going to need somebody.
You can tell we taught for a long time. And then one of the other really good events are any of your alumni events. Because, once again, extremely welcoming you guys into the community, and also more than willing to help. And if you are planning on relocating, you should contact your alumni association and tell them, I'm going to be moving to a certain state. Do we have an alumni chapter there? A lot of dental schools have their alumni chapters all over the country.
They also may have
right.
a list of dentists for
Right.
you to reach out to. So,
so it's just another avenue for you to really get your name out, well ahead of the pack, to get that going.
So those are all things you can do way before you're ready to start your search. But what about once you're ready to start your search? First of all, when should you start your search? We get that question all the time. So you probably should not start looking for a job until actually looking for a job, meaning responding to ads, until 3 months before you're ready to start, tops. And before you can figure out when you're ready to start, please keep in mind that you need a license before you can start, which means you have to finish your dental school requirements and graduate. So these are all things to keep into consideration. Where I think that we're going to be speaking to eventually about, actually we're not. I was going to say contracts, but one of the things you want to make sure is before you sign a contract, you have to know when your start date is, because you need to make sure that you're going to be done and ready to start on time. But I'm sure we'll get to that in one of our other webinars.
So, when to start looking, as Dr. Peltz mentioned, if you are looking for a corporate opportunity, a lot of the corporates, the recruiting, I don't know if they're at your school. I know at NYU, like right after January, February, that's when, the recruiters started making all these lunch and learns, or these after hour, meet and greet type of events for the students. So a lot of those recruiters may start earlier. So if that's where your interest is, you should start your research earlier so that you know which of these corporations might be, the best opportunity for you moving forward.
And we already talked a lot about the marketing of yourself. So first of all, you have to figure out your brand to distinguish yourself from others. And then you're going to be heavily networking so that you are putting yourself out there. And when people hear your name, they say, oh, wow, I've met that person, or I've heard of that person before. So that you're going to really just get yourself out there. And of course, you're going to use every available tool to find a job. So that includes job boards like Doccupations, or matching websites like Doccupations, Indeed, everything that you can do. And we already talked a little bit about how you can find practices of interest and reach out to them directly. And that you may have quite a bit of success with that as well.
So we should tell them what they're in for the next week.
Our next webinar with you is going to be April 19th, and that is Insurance Needs of the New Dentist. And that will once again be at 7 o'clock your time. You will see the registration link in the chat box, so please register in advance and tell your friends. Also, if you need to speak to Dr. Studley about insurance before then, you can reach him at insurance@drstudley.com for any insurance-related questions or career guidance as you begin your careers.
So we alluded to certain ways about preparing, for the job interview. And I think that's what we've been, all this is hopefully leading up for that. But how do you know how you're going to really fit into that job? Like everything that we've been taught, we research everything. So you must look at the job first. If you're looking to go DSO corporate type of thing, their whole, go to their website and they'll tell you what their benefit packages are. If you're looking to work for, a group practice individual dentist, look at their website, because maybe you'll see certain procedures that they're not doing that you do. Maybe you'll see they're not open, evenings or weekends. Well, you're that young dentist. You would work evenings, weekends. As a starting dentist, just so you know, your production will be so much greater working from, let's say, 4 to 8 at night and weekends. So if you're looking to really build patience, evenings, weekends, get the most amount of emergencies, and people. Just think about in your clinics, you never have problems booking the evening appointments. If you guys do have evening clinic at NYU, we did. And, weekend appointments, offer to work those kinds of things as well.
So again, think of it from the employer's perspective. They have all of these people to interview, but you come in and you've studied their website, you've looked at patient reviews, you see, you notice they're not doing endo, and you say, I think I could help out by maybe doing some of your endo procedures. Whatever you can bring to the table and point out to that employer is something that's going to be an advantage in a job search. They'll be impressed that you did your homework, you studied the practice, you found out where you could help. Don't forget that when an employer is looking to hire somebody, they need help from you. So if you come in and say, I'm going to help you as an employer, that's exactly what I want to hear.
Right, because it's the exact opposite, because the employer is looking, well, I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a certain percentage of my gross that I was making. You're going to come in, you're the new dentist, you're going to use up my supplies because, you're still, using up more than what you have to. We all learn eventually how, what we really need in impression materials and stuff like that. And also using a lot less impression materials. But you also want to have questions prepared for your interview. One of the worst things also, and a great way to have your employer be able to make a decision right away whether they're going to hire you or not, is when the interview is ending and the employer, which might be a dentist, might be an HR, a human resources person. So you may not be interviewed, especially on a first interview. You may not be interviewed by the owner. Might be their office manager, their financial manager, that kind of thing. So you want to have questions prepared, and they can be written down. They can be on your phone, but you want to have questions prepared. Not asking questions at the completion of an interview shows the employer or interviewer that you really weren't that interested to spend the time listening or even doing some background check to go over certain questions. So having them prepared ahead of time is really good.
So at this point, I think we should have you go to the chat box and fill out the form. You'll see a link and fill out the form because we would like to email you a $5 Starbucks gift card. So we hope you'll put in your address because we want you all to enjoy a nice latte on us. We also have a winner of a $50 Amazon gift card, and that is John Morris.
Is John there?
John. So if John Morris, if you're there, please type Yippee I1 into the chat box so we know you're here.
So we have, as we progress further with our subsequent presentations with you guys, we will be including, even more stuff with this as we continue, because a lot of the material really ties into each other. So when we start talking next week about insurance needs for the dentist, we'll go over some of the things that new dentist needs, but also your do's and don'ts about going on working interviews and what preparations you need for that.
So we're looking forward to seeing you on the 19th.
The 19th.
Sorry, the 19th at 7 o'clock. And until then, have a good night.
Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you looking at us.
Yes, we
Thank
do.
you.
Helps.
Thank you for your time.
We appreciate you.
Oh, sure. We appreciate you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.